Okay, so class, this is the seventh and the last video from this chapter, wherein you will understand that during the Cold War, what was the role of India, what was the interest of India, what was India doing during the Cold War period, how did the critics have actually criticized on the role of India. Okay, now how did India responded to the ongoing Cold War? When the Cold War was going, how did India had its response? So the response was basically and can be categorized in two folds. At the first level, it took particular care in staying away from two alliances. So first thing was that India had a very strong stand on the पॉइंट दैट हमें कोई भी एलाइज ज्वाइन नहीं करना एंड बिकॉज हमें अभी इंडिपेंडेंस मिली है वी आर मोर कीन टू कीप आर इंडिपेंडेंस मोर स्ट्रॉन्ग एंड वी विल नॉट ज्वाइन एनी ऑफ द अलायंस. ओके, द सेकेंड थिंग वॉज it raised its voice against the newly decolonized countries becoming part of these alliance. सेकेंड थिंग वॉज इंडिया ने हमेशा से ये कहा एंड इंडिया वॉज ऑफ द व्यू दैट जितने भी कंट्रीज़ अभी न्यू इंडिपेंडेंस गेन कर रहे हैं उनको एलाइज और any of these superpowers नहीं join करना चाहिए. Why? Because if they are joining superpowers, they are actually becoming colony again. Then what is the point of gaining independence? So these 2 points were actually explaining that how did India had its role during the Cold War. Now, since we all know that Nehru from our country is one of the founding members of the NAM, so what was his view? He said that the world non-alignment was not a policy of fleeing away. Okay, ये वो policy नहीं है fleeing away in the sense उड़ जाना, भाग जाना. This policy NAM doesn't mean that we are just going away or we are just running away from the situation of Cold War. On the contrary, India was in favor of actively intervening in world affairs to soften Cold Wars. And on the contrary, what was India doing? India was actually involved in the Cold War very much. How? It was actually trying to resolve the conflict during the Cold War period and making the Cold War more softer so that the rivalries could be settled. Okay, now India's interest from NAM. India का क्या interest था NAM से? India को क्या फ़ायदा था NAM से? Okay, NAM allowed India to take international decision and stances that served its interest rather than the interest of the superpowers and their allies. So first interest was, NAM ने क्या किया? NAM ने allow किया इंडिया को कि इंडिया अपना interest देखे कोल्ड वॉर के पीरियड में instead of looking for the interest of the superpowers. Like if India ने कोई भी ally नहीं join किया है तो there are chances that some or the other of the ally will force India to join their ally. But India का interest, because India became India formed this NAM and it became member of NAM, so India को पहला फ़ायदा ये हुआ that India international terms पे नहीं चल रहा था, that is allies powers की नहीं सुन रहा था, but it was actually looking for its own interest. The second thing is India was often able to balance one superpower against the other. If India felt ignored, pressurized by one superpower, it could tilt towards other. Neither alliance system could take India for granted or bully it. Now the second thing was that, for example, if US is trying to ignore some or like if any of the two powers are trying to ignore India, or if US is trying to bully or pressurize India, so India can go to USSR, or if USSR is trying to do the same thing, it can go to US. Okay, so it was trying to create a balance and thus being not member of any of the two groups. Okay, the last point of this book is of this chapter is how India's policy of NAM is criticized. So there are again two principles. So the first initial critique view is that they called India on joining NAM as unprincipled. Why? They said that because in the name of pursuing its national interest, India often refused to take a firm stance on crucial international issues. Critics ने basically कहा that just saying that we are member of the NAM and we are pursuing our own interest, India used to often stay away from the crucial international issues, which was actually not the scenario. India did took firm stand on the crucial international issues. However, this was point of the critiques. The second point was that India was suggested inconsistent and took contrary postures. Okay, now why India को बोला गया कि आप बहुत ही contradictory हो. How? Because having criticized other for joining alliances, India signed the Treaty of Friendship in August 1971 with the USSR for 20 years. Actually, the critics said that when India is saying you should not join any of the allies, especially if you are recently decolonized, so why did India itself had a treaty of friendship with the USSR for that to 20 years in 1971? Because of this treaty, India was criticized for being inconsistent and for having contrary postures. Okay, now what did India had to say about this critique view? Some critics viewed that since India has signed this treaty with USSR of friendship, they felt that India has actually virtually joined the Soviet Union. They are not just showing in reality that they are with Soviet, but they are virtually part of Soviet alliance. But however, this was not the case. India replied to these critiques in the sense that India said India needed diplomatic and military support during Bangladesh crisis, and obviously we know that US has always supported Pakistan in the disputes between India and Pakistan. So India also needed some kind of diplomatic and military help. So for that, India had supported during the Bangladesh crisis USSR and had a treaty with that. It had not joined USSR. Okay, the other thing is also this treaty did not stop India from having good relations with other countries including US. And the people who were saying that, or the critics who were saying that India has joined USSR, India said, see, this treaty, if we had actually joined USSR, we would not have good relations with US and other countries. So these 2 points are good enough to respond to the critique. So here, students, I have summed up each and everything from your NCERT book, and if you will go through the PDF which I have sent you, you will find these many treaties which were related to the armed controls. So you just need to remember when were they formed, what was their names. Now, what were these treaties? You remember the Cuban Missile Crisis were there, and the world at that time was basically that okay, ab nuclear war ho sakta hai. So both countries were equally now worried, and they signed a number of arms control treaties. Mostly in most of the treaties it was said that we will reduce the formation of arms and we will reduce the production of arms so that there are less chances of nuclear war in world. Okay, so I have completed all the chapter. You just go through it thoroughly and tell me the doubts if you have any doubts, and we'll discuss it in the other session. Until then, thank you and goodbye. Have a nice day.